All right, what's up? So my name is Jonathan Lynn Heidenreich Jr. I was born and raised in Owensboro, Kentucky. I'm a senior here at Kentucky Wesleyan. So sadly, my time has come to an end, and that really stinks, especially with everything going on. It kind of ended shorter than I would have liked to, and who knows what's going to happen. But I'm just really excited to share with you all just kind of my story about where God has taken me through my life. So I think the number one thing to say ahead of time would be my story kind of involves a lot of things that I look back on and then I realize what God did throughout my life. There's been moments where I've been like, God, why did you do this? I don't understand. Like, why is this happening? That's happened to me quite a lot. But I feel like something I've prayed for so much is for God to just give me the ability to see what He's doing and to understand His plan. And I don't walk around every day knowing what He wants me to do, obviously, but I feel like God has always given me a good understanding of, okay, Johnny, this is why I did this. Here's where you need to go with it. And so throughout my story, like, this is stuff that I struggle with a lot. But looking back now, I'm able to say, like, okay, God, I saw you in this. I see you in that. Thank you for doing this for me. So we'll just start. I was raised in a home where I didn't have to go to church, and so I didn't. I just kind of grew up going through the motions. I went to school. I went home. That was it. I played baseball until I was 13, but it wasn't really a huge part of my life. And so I always tell people that when you grow up, if you don't have Jesus, there's a hole that you're trying to fill because we were all made to be with Him. And so growing up, I had this hole, and I felt empty, and I didn't know how to fill it. And so I tried to fill it with a lot of different things. The number one thing I focused on was like status. I thought I needed to be the coolest person. I thought everyone needed to like me. I needed to fit in a certain way. And so I went to school obviously every day, and I was just like, all right, my number one goal today, fit in. How am I going to be cool? How am I going to make people laugh? And then I would go home. And then I would go to school the next day and try it again. And that was my life. That was all that I thought was important. And so obviously you can imagine, wasn't too happy doing that. If you're trying to live your life pleasing other people and being somebody that you're not, it's never going to end up well. Even if sometimes it did feel good, and sometimes I did feel like I was fitting in. But obviously, when that's your main goal, it didn't go well for me. And so, growing up until 8th grade is kind of where life changed a little bit. 8th grade, I did finally feel like I was on top of the world. Felt like I was Mr. Popular. Everybody knew my name. I was killing it. People loved me. Like, I was hanging out with all the cool kids. I was hanging out with all the non-cool kids. I was just like social butterfly. I've got this. Life is good. And then one day, these two guys who I thought were like the kings of the school, like Mr. Popular, even though I hate the word popular now, like that's just a thing we make up in our minds. But like in my mind, my little 8th grade mind, I thought these two dudes are the coolest. I've got to hang out with them. Looked at me straight in the eyes one day and they were like, hey, we're not going to hang out with you anymore when we get to high school. Like, you're just too weird. And I was like, huh, good one, guys, burn. And they were like, no, like, seriously, we get to high school, that ain't it. We're not hanging out with you anymore. What? Like, no way. I get to high school, sure enough, walk in, first class, intro to physics. I was like, oh, what's up? And they just didn't even look at me. So that was really tough. And I think with that too, like I lost a lot of friends and a lot of the social status changed going from middle school to high school. I thought I had it all, and then I was back to the bottom of the totem pole. And that kind of made me like go into a turtle shell. I didn't really talk to people as much. And I know that's like strange for me. I'm a very extroverted person now, but we'll get there. I struggled with just thinking, okay, well, I want to open up to people. I want to get to be Mr. Cool again. But if I like try to focus on popularity and I try to make friends, what if they just kind of like stab me in the back again? What if I put my trust in someone and then they push me out again? I need people that I can trust. And so for 2 years of high school, I was very like inner self. I didn't let people know about my problems. I didn't let people know about my struggles. I just tried to slowly work my way up of like the social ladder, I guess. And it was kind of hard and it was very disappointing sometimes, but I just kept going and kept going and kept trying, and it wasn't working out until junior year came along, and life changed for the better. So hadn't been going to church or anything, didn't know anything about God, thought the most important thing was popularity and status. How am I going to fit in? How am I going to be cool enough? And I get to chemistry class one day, and there's a day where the teacher says, hey, like before you go to lunch, you got to clean up your lab. Make sure your lab's clean before you go to lunch. Cool. Our table agreed. All right, we're all going to stay here and clean up together before anybody goes to lunch. And then sure enough, lunchtime comes, everybody leaves but me, and it's just me. I'm alone, and I was like, dang, like, everybody just left me behind. Like, I'm that kid that gets left behind. Like, I'm the one who would have volunteered. I'm the nice kid who would clean this up. But once again, just kind of like the transition from 8th grade to freshman year of high school, like, I'm left behind again. Like, I don't matter. Like, I'm just so easily left behind. I'm an afterthought. I'm not important. And that was kind of a rock bottom for me, like that one specific moment. But luckily, this person who was at my table, who I had known for a long time, but we weren't super close, I'm walking out of the room to go to lunch, and they are running back to me. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I forgot. Like, I can't believe, are you okay? Did you get everything cleaned up? And in that one moment, it was like this person running back for me. It just kind of changed my my life, I was thinking like, who is this person that would have ran back for me? This is crazy. And so I started telling this person about like what I was going through and how much it meant for me that they didn't leave me behind, that they remembered me. And that was really cool. And that person said like, hey, like, well, I know if you're struggling with all this, have you ever gone to church? And I was like, nah, that's not really for me. Like, I've gone to a youth group a couple times with my friend just so I could play basketball at their court, but I'm not really a church person. They said, hey, well, if you want to like start coming with me to church, that's fine. So they started taking me, and it was really cool. I was someone who had a lot of questions. I went to church, and every day I was like, what about this? How does this make sense? I don't get it. This doesn't make sense. Well, what about this? Why did this happen in the Bible? Why does this happen in real life? I was so confused, and I asked a lot of questions, but eventually over time it started making more sense, and they said, well, you know what you need to do? You need to start reading the Bible on your own. And let me tell you, I do not read. I am not a reader. I would rather watch the movie. I would rather do anything than read. Like today, I can tell you that scripture is like one of my favorite things to do. Like I love reading scripture, analyzing it, looking at it, but that's the only thing. Like any other book, I'll read 2 pages and then I'm done. I can't. I hate reading. But they said, hey, you should start reading the Bible on your own. Maybe it'll help. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm pretty sad at this point in life. Like I feel like I'm worthless. Something's got to change. Sure, I'll start reading the Bible. Why not? And so I pulled out this giant textbook of a book, started reading the Bible, and I gave it a shot. And they told me to start reading in Matthew, and it was like I couldn't put it down. All of a sudden, there was this book about this dude who was like a real life kind of superhero, but not the kind that we normally think about. And it was just so interesting that like this actually happened. And I was reading all these things that he was saying and all these things that he was doing, and I was like, well, wait, this actually sounds good. Wait a minute, like I'm confused. And so I got to Matthew chapter 5, and that is the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. And we call Matthew chapter 5 like the beginning part of it, the Beatitudes. It's just a really fancy church term. But I'm just going to read a piece of the scripture. This is Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 3, and this is Jesus. He says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And so I'm reading this in my room alone, and it's like I have this overwhelming feeling of this is what I need you to understand. Like there's not many points in my life where I can say I've physically felt God, because God's not always a physical feeling. You can't just dap Jesus up in the morning, but I felt God in that moment saying, like, this is where I wanted you to be. Like, this is what you need to understand. It was like, in my view, up to this point in my life, trying to fill that hole that I didn't know what went there. In my mind, I was thinking Jesus would have said, blessed are the kids who fit in. Blessed are the kids who have good grades, who have a lot of friends, who people laugh at their jokes. They wear cool clothes. They have more money than you. Blessed are the kids who play sports. Blessed are the people who have boyfriends and girlfriends. Blessed are the people who have great parents at home. Blessed are the people who have this and that and all these different things. And it was like in one small passage, in one moment, Jesus said, yeah, that's not what matters. It's not all that stuff. It's blessed are the meek. Blessed are the pure in heart. All these different things. And I just felt Jesus say, like, Johnny, this is what matters. This is where I wanted you. Like, come to me right now. And I was like, bet, I'm all in. And so after 5 months of going to church, I went to church for the first time on January 10th of 2015. I was baptized May 17th of 2015. And even though I had a lot of questions, I was someone who dove right in. After I became a Christian, I was baptized. I was volunteering in elementary school ministry. I was going to like all of my church's services. I could not get enough of Jesus, and I still can't today. But one of my first struggles as a Christian was I was confused a little bit on why I had to go 16 years without knowing God, because I made all these new Christian friends, and that was what I wanted. I had a lot of good friends in high school, like I said, but I didn't have anybody that I felt like I could open up to. I was very closed off, and God delivered that to me. He gave me some of my greatest friends that I still talk to today and that I can open up to. But they would always tell stories about church camp or their young memories of, oh man, remember when this happened? It was so great. Remember church camp when this happened? It was so great. Like, man, I'm so glad that I've known God my whole life. And I was just kind of like, my life hasn't been that great up to this point. And so I was a little confused. Like, well, God, why didn't I get that? Why didn't I get all these cool memories early in my 16 years of life? Why did I have to wait so long to know you if you're so good? And I wouldn't say I was mad. I was just more so confused. But kind of at the same time, I was wondering, well, God, like, how come my life's not perfect anymore? Like, I thought that I was going to become a Christian. I was going to just wake up, the birds were going to fly and land on my arm, the sun was going to shine, everything's going to be good, I'm not going to have any more problems. And that wasn't the case. And so I was very confused after I became a Christian. I was confused about a lot of things, but in a short period of time, God kind of answered that not everything's going to be perfect. God doesn't take away our problems. He just helps us get through them. And that's been a really cool experience. And so I'm one of the most stress-free people you can find. I think anybody who knows me would tell you that. And the other thing I realized was about freshman year of college started, and I'm talking to my friends about all these great church camps that I've gone to and helping kids out in ministry. And one of them says, "What are you majoring in college?" And I said, "Oh, biology, for sure." And they were like, "Why?" And I was like, "Well, I love science and stuff." And they were like, "Johnny, I've never heard you talk about science once." And I was like, "I mean, yeah, it's not really something you talk about." And they're like, "Johnny, you never shut up about ministry and kids and helping people find the Lord." And they were like, "Why don't you do something with that?" And I was like, "Wait a minute, you might be onto something. What if I do something like that? That would be cool." And so I changed my major to religion, and minor in Christian ministries haven't changed since. And that was kind of something that I realized where I think God had all that happen, had me go through 16 years of life without him so that I could know what it's like. I think that reaching people now who don't know God is totally different than reaching people who didn't know God 50 years ago. And because I got to experience that side of life, I relate to people who don't know God. When I go and teach children or I teach my youth students about him, I know where they're sitting. I've been there. I was there just 5 or 6 years ago. I was sitting in their shoes thinking the same things. I was going through the same struggles. I know what it's like to just want people's opinion of you to be different. I know what it's like to pretend to be someone else, to just focus so much on what other people think about you. I know what it's like to just prioritize that, how bad it feels. And there's this aspect of me that's yes, I get it. I know that's what you want right now. But if you let that go for just a second and experience Jesus for just a moment, it's going to be so much better than anything you've experienced yet. And I have that passion to just go out and tell the world that now. And that's kind of why I had that experience now. So a verse that comes to mind is John 13:7. I call this the God's plan verse. This is when Jesus is washing the disciples' feet, and they're like, "What is our Savior doing washing our feet?" And John 13:7 says that Jesus replied, "For you do not know now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." So kind of back to what I said earlier, my life has been just a series of events where I'm like, "God, I don't get this. God, I am so confused." But luckily, at some point, even though it's never soon, it's never immediate, I understand why God did what he did. Because his plan is always better than ours. I go around, many people know that I just always shout out "Hey, God's plan," found a penny on the ground, God's plan. And I just think it's important because we have a lot of plans for ourselves. Here I am, a senior, and I'm about to graduate. I don't know what I'm gonna do next, but God does. And so I don't feel like I stress out about that stuff. And sometimes it's good to stress, it's good to make a plan because you don't want to go into life not knowing anything. But at the same time, if you spend your life planning things and they're not what God wants, it's not God's plan, you're either going to get mad, you're going to get disappointed, you're going to be twice as confused. And so I've learned to just kind of live life, let go, let God, I guess would be the phrase. God's plan, that's what I'm all about. So moving forward a little bit, college comes, like I said, and I got here, and within 2 weeks, I was in our campus ministries director's office, and I said, "Yo, I want to leave. This isn't for me. I'm so confused. There's a lot of stuff in the real world that I'm not ready for and that I don't agree with. I feel like I don't have a lot of friends here yet. I don't know. I just want to leave." And I was filling out applications, and I was ready to transfer. I was ready to get out of here and just find something different. But campus ministries as a whole just kind of helped a lot through that process of finding friends who believe the same things I did. And it also just helped me to grow a lot. You can't grow when you're comfortable. And so I think I grew so fast, so much because I was uncomfortable. But it was with campus ministries behind me, it made being uncomfortable a lot easier. And so being uncomfortable with other people who are also uncomfortable with the same beliefs I did, that just helped me so much. But throughout my 4 years here, I would say one of the things I struggled with, again, was being alone. Because I had these great friends in high school that I went to youth group. Like I said, junior year, I went to church for the first time, made these new great friends. And then it was we all went to college. And all my friends kind of left. And even though, we're so close, we keep up over text. Fall break comes, so I'll get to see them again. That's great. But I just felt alone because they weren't there. And so I made a couple new friends who were close here. But, life happens, things change, people part ways, people go different places. And then one of my great friends, Jonah White, he was an upperclassman, and so he leaves. And so junior year comes, and I felt kind of alone. Junior year was a little rough. I had a lot of harder classes. I was focusing a lot again on my future. I was trying to make my own plans. And then I got my first real job. I'm playing soccer. I had so much going on at once that spring semester, I just broke down, and I felt so alone. I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel like I could do the things that God wanted me to do. And I was like, well, why would he ask me to do these things if I can't do them? It was just a tough time for Johnny. But anyway, I found that like college, just overall, is like your worst memories and your best memories at the same time. It is what you make out of it. Like if you were just someone who, like I did with high school, like I just go to school, come back, you're not gonna get much out of it. But I found that, man, in the times that God broke me down the most, in those moments where I feel like I've had my worst memories in college, that was when he was able to say, like, yeah, Johnny, you can't do this. Like, you're not good enough, but I am. Like, let me do this. And so another verse that kind of came to mind for that was 2 Corinthians, and it is chapter 10, verses 9 through 12, I believe. Or no, chapter 12, 9 through 10. Nailed it. Chapter 12, 9 through 10. And that's the verses where he's saying, when I am weak, then I am strong. And I just feel like in life, in these moments where I've been broken, like last spring, it was where I've had to realize that I was weak, that God came through, and that I was strong. Like, I feel like I bounced back harder through that than anything. Like, I needed that growth. I needed to be broken to find God, and that was really cool. I just felt like I had so much on my plate at once. I had bitten off more than I could chew. I felt like I couldn't live up to the responsibilities that everybody wanted from me. And among all that, I felt alone at the same time, and that was like the ultimate struggle. And so I'm praying, like, God, what do you want me to do? And I go on this mission trip to Mississippi amidst all of this work that I already have, amidst all this feeling alone. I was like, you know what? I'll go do more work, because apparently that's going to help me. And sure enough, it did. Like, that mission trip changed my life. I met some of my closest friends now on that trip, and I just had some one-on-one time with Sean there while serving other people. Because, pro tip, you're ever feeling bad about yourself, you're ever struggling, go help somebody else, changes your life. But aside from that, Sean, our campus ministry director, really helped me out in that time, and he talked to me about the growth process and stuff like that, and how God uses these moments. And I was like, well, man, like, if God's going to use this, I hope it's like big. And sure enough, like, God did. I was blessed after that trip to just become so close with so many people, and I feel like I now have kind of my inner circle of people that I rely on. Like, when I tell people my friends are my family, like, I mean that. I have a giant just like wall in my room of just pictures of my friends and all my favorite memories. Hopefully there's a picture of that you can see. But on that wall, it's just like celebrating all my favorite memories with all my favorite people. Just because, again, I know what it's like to not have them. And so I always tell people, man, I watch a lot of like crime documentaries where they'll interview people and they'll be like, all right, well, we interviewed the best friend of the victim to see what they had to say. And they'll interview the best friend and they'll be like, did you know this person was doing this? And they'll be like, I had no idea. They'll be like, did you know that this person was thinking about running away? I had no clue. Did you know this person was talking to someone suspicious? I had no clue. And I'm like, how do these people not know? Like, if you are interviewing the best friend of the victim, like, are you really their best friend? Like, how do you not know this stuff? And so I get that some people struggle to open up, but like, once you've found that circle of trust, like, my friends know whether or not I stepped on a ladybug today. Like, I tell them everything. Like, my friends are, again, legitimately like my second family. And so what's been really cool for me was, especially after that moment my junior year, just getting close to so many different people and finding like a Wesleyan family, finding like my college family. I think about how we're just not supposed to do this alone, because being alone stinks. Like, right now in this craziness, I haven't left my house in so long. It's the first time I've gotten out in forever, thank God. Being alone is kind of rough sometimes. Even if you're an introvert, it's like we need people. God didn't make us to do this alone. Jesus had his disciples. I think of Job. When Job was going through one of the hardest times that any human has ever faced, he had his 3 friends that came and just sat there, and it says that they just sat there. They didn't say anything. They just sat there and let Job know that they were with him. I think about just so many different moments. I think about Ecclesiastes 4, verses 9 through 12, and it literally tells us, pity the person who falls and has no one to pick them up. It says 2 is greater than 1, and it goes on to say that 3 is even greater than 2. Like, we are not meant to do this alone. And what's probably been the coolest thing for me, I would say, at Wesleyan, and just growing as a human being in general, aside from all that stuff that's already happened, that shout out God for, but aside from all that, being able to see other people's growth, like now as a senior, I have to start looking at life differently. I have to start looking at life at like what's going on for Johnny next, but I also get to see, okay, well, who's in my shoes that I was in like freshman year? Like, I get to look at the underclassmen and say, like, how can I help them? How can I help these people grow? What's coming next? Like, what am I going to leave behind at Wesleyan? And so, man, getting to grow close to so many different people has been awesome. And so I'm going to take a second and just kind of like, I guess, thank people for the influence that they have on my life, whether they know it or not, but also just kind of like talk a lesson through it. Just bear with me. It's going to be awesome. So if you're someone who is getting involved in campus ministries at Kentucky Wesleyan, like if you're in our Mile 2, if you're a freshman, sophomore, whatever, if you're getting involved, this next part is like straight up for you because, man, campus ministries is great, and I've got a lot to say. So I remember one day, I'm sitting in the office my sophomore year. I was in there with Rakara McDowell, who was a senior when I don't know, she was an upperclassman. Shout out Rakara if you're watching this, but I'm in there with Rakara, and one day this girl walks in, and she's like, hey, is Sean here? And I'll just let you guess the answer to that question if you're from campus ministries. Sean was not there, and so we had to kind of like say, oh, okay, well, he's not here. Do you need anything? And she said, well, I'm looking for a place to start reading in the Bible, but I don't really know how. And so I got to be a part of like seeing Rakara help her. And then a couple days later, the same girl comes back in and, hey, is Sean here? No, he's not. Okay, well, I don't know, blah, blah, I need some like help. And we're like, all right, cool. So me and Rakara kind of come into the chapel and we got to help this person through what they were going through. And it was really cool just thinking about how different life is now compared to my sophomore year when that happened. That person was Tia Chavella. And Tia has been just a person that I've got to see grow so much from that time when I first met her as someone who came into the office not really knowing where to start, to now she's a campus ministries intern and she's accepted so much responsibility. And feeling like I got to be there and see her grow and be next to her was just a great blessing in my life. And that's just been awesome. And so another person, Carson Ellis, man, Carson's one of my teammates, and it's just been great seeing him grow. Like when we first met, we weren't even that close. We were just people who were teammates. You know, we're two people who obviously have stuff in common, but we didn't hang out. But I've gotten to see Carson grow from someone who's a little bit more shy and a little bit more reserved to my man's lost a lot of weight. My man's just a lot more extroverted now. I've seen him go through a lot of different things, but he is someone that I would just count on. And I would say that if you're a campus ministries person, I would kind of model the way you do campus ministries things after Carson a little bit. He's just been a great example in the office, and I trust him to leave behind a great legacy as well. Like I feel like I'm leaving campus ministries in good hands with Carson. His impact on my life, like as a brother in Christ, has been fantastic, and the way we've grown together, being able to lean on him as he leans on me has just been great. He's someone that I know I can count on, and he's kind of just blessed me, and just seeing him grow has been the best part. Like obviously we're good friends, but just seeing his growth has been cool, as with all the people I'm about to name. Just being blessed by watching other people grow and feeling like you have a part in that. Matthew Morris is kind of the same story. I didn't really know Matthew that well. My first year that he was here, rather, he was just kind of quiet. He didn't say much. One day he showed up to a Stories dressed as Phil Swift, which is like an advertisement dude, I don't know. Right then I was like, yo, this dude's crazy. But I've seen him kind of grow a backbone, and I think he would agree with me. Like, dude was really shy, but now he's kind of a little bit more willing to speak up for himself. He's a little bit more willing to take responsibility. I've just been able to see him grow too. And the same thing, like with both of them, Carson and Matthew, it's like that's kind of in my core group, my inner circle of brothers. Those are my people that would come for me if I was in Job's situation. And so seeing both of them grow and feel like I had a part in that was really awesome. Another person, Abigail Tivitt. I call her Abigail just because it cracks me up. But Abby Tivitt has become one of my rocks. Like after the Mississippi mission trip, she was one of the people that I got to meet there. And our friendship just kind of flourished. Like I haven't seen one single person grow as much as I have in Abby. Like to know where she was when we first kind of met to where she is now, in addition to everything that I know that she's gone through. Abby Tivitt is someone who is just all for the Lord, and her growth has just been fantastic, and that's blessed me. And so, shout out Abby. Don't know what I would do without her either, with any of these people, same. Abby's been a blessing, and just seeing her grow has been awesome. Zach Williams, another one of my teammates. Zach, I think, is the poster child for own it, grow it. That's kind of been our motto for campus ministries this year. Talking all about you've got to own your faith first. It's got to be your own faith, yours. You've got to own it. And then also you've got to grow it. And Zach Williams was someone who kind of in the same boat as some of these people, was kind of shy, kind of quiet, more reserved. He was somebody that you knew if he spoke, he knew what he was talking about, but he didn't speak often. And he's always been kind of a more quiet dude, but he's really cool and he knows what he's talking about. And this past year, a lot especially, he's really owned his faith and he's really grown it. And I've seen that man take up a lot more responsibility and just try a lot of new things and get out of his comfort zone and grow so much more. So Zach Williams has blessed me just by seeing his faith and his ability to own it and grow it. And that's been really cool. Courtney Kamoff is another funny story. I met Courtney on the Give Kids the World trip my sophomore year, and Courtney and I, funny, actually have gone to school together like our whole lives, but I just didn't know her until college. But when I first met Courtney on this Give Kids the World trip, we were serving some terminally ill children, and that was really cool. But there was a day that she got lost as if she was a child, and that was really funny. I was running around the village just hollering her name because she had lost her phone too, and she had gotten separated from the group, so it was like worst case scenario. But from the first time that I met her like that to see now, I'll never forget. There was a day when I was in a meeting with Dr. Coleman and I believe his wife and some other people who are from some board. I don't know, boards are fancy, but they were from some fancy organization investigating like different campus ministries at different colleges and just seeing what they were doing. And I was eating a meal with them, and they asked me like, how do you feel like campus ministries is growing? And like, I kid you not, right as they asked that, I got a text message from one of her friends, and they were like, hey, how do we get more involved in campus ministries? And so I feel like I've really gotten to see how Courtney has just grown in her faith as well, and now she is also a campus ministries intern. So being someone who wasn't really involved in campus ministries and being lost on a trip to where she's at now, and she's engaged and she's got responsibilities with campus ministries, just she's another person who has just owned it and grown it, and I feel like I've been blessed with her presence. That's been really cool. And so Austin and Annie have been there from the beginning. Austin Trammell and Annie Grace. There are two people who also like kind of embody owning it and growing it. Like there are two people who are so responsible. I wouldn't have got through chemistry class without Annie Grace. I made a lot of mistakes, and she, luckily, God placed her right in front of me. Bless up. But just seeing them grow as well and their responsibility has been fantastic, and just everything they've done. They're two people who, I mean, I couldn't think of two people more with just a better foundation on Christ. Like, even if everything was going crazy like it is now in the world, I have no doubt that they're just like, boom, rooted. Jesus, we're all in. I'm all in with Jesus. And so getting to see their growth from where they were freshman year to now has also been just awesome. And seeing them take up more responsibility and also maintain the responsibilities that they already had. They've never been people to quit. They've never been people to back down, despite everything that they've gone through. And so just getting to grow next to them through all 4 years here has been fantastic. Last person, Cindy Jones, who was a freshman. She's going to be one of our worship interns next year. But she was a freshman who kind of the same story as some of these other people. Came in really shy. And I just kind of want to read a text message that she sent me one time. I don't know if she won't mind doing this. We were having like an emotional conversation one night, and this text just like brought me to tears. If there were other people in the room right now, I'd probably be crying a lot, but here we are. And so she said, yeah, when coming here, talking about when coming to Wesleyan, I was so scared, so nervous, so awkward and shy. But then all of you in campus ministries literally just loved me and accepted me, and I've never felt more at home than when I'm there with all of you. So many people have just come up and made me feel welcome and like I was loved, and it's brought me closer to myself and to God. I've never been happier than I am now here at this school. God has blessed me with the best people in the whole world and with opportunities He's provided for me to learn and grow in my faith and worship. I've never felt more courage and strength to bring people closer to God. And so, in summary of everything I've said, that text message kind of just makes me think about how my story has been just a story of like patience. The number one thing that I've had to grow in is patience. Like, one of the things that I was complaining about when I was thinking about transferring was just that like campus ministries wasn't like big enough. And I felt like we were doing everything right, and I felt like everything was going good, but people weren't coming, and there just wasn't a change. And Sean would say, well, you gotta be patient, like numbers aren't everything. It doesn't matter that like we're doing everything right and only like 15 people came to chapel today, it doesn't matter. And I was just so confused, but Sydney is a person who I just feel like the past 4 years of just doing everything that God wants us to do in campus ministries, even though it was slow, even though it took time, even though the reward wasn't immediate, Sydney is just an example of like why we did all of it. And so to Sean and to Anna, who I've also gotten to grow with for the past 4 years, just seeing their patience as well, and same with Austin and Annie, because we've all been here for the 4 years, like just being able to be patient and just keep doing what God wants us to do, despite not feeling rewarded at the time, despite being confused, despite not knowing now, God, what you're doing, but later we get to understand, like now I see, okay, God, it needed to be slow, it needed to be patient. We needed to have these events slowly build, because now we have people like Sydney who gets here and has that reward. She has that foundation of campus ministries. Because when we got here, like, man, Anna, Sean, Austin, and Annie, like when we got here, campus ministries was so small, it was so new, and I just wanted it to be bigger, and I knew that it needed to be, but it wasn't, and it was rough, but it was really cool. I think so much back to just freshman. Sick. So, sadly, the camera cut out because I talked way too long. Hopefully you got like some popcorn and a pee break in. I'm here. Luckily I was on campus, God's plan, to just kind of film the ending. I was about done. And so all I had to say left, I'm just going to kind of read it so that I don't lose track. Growth takes time. That's kind of what I was just wrapping up with. Your growth, your friends' growth, your faith's growth, organization's growth, school's growth. Just be patient. College can be the best 4 years of your life and the worst 4 years of your life, like your best moments and your worst. It's just you get out of it what you put into it, but you just grow so much through those bad times and through those good times. So don't take your friends for granted. Don't take campus ministries for granted. Those are both things, your friends and campus ministries have grown so much to get to where they are now, and they're still growing. And so like I said, when I was here, like if you're a freshman, I didn't have what you have now, and so just don't take that for granted. And just think about leaving behind a good legacy. Like, you need to grow enough to where you can help other people grow so that when you leave, those people can help other people grow, and those people can help other people grow, and so on and so on and so forth. So, yeah, God's plan that I was here. God's plan is what my story is, and so it all just kind of works out. Sorry if I look a little rough. I just got into playing soccer, happened to be here. God's plan. Love y'all.
Hello, friends, Romans countrymen. I'm not going to quote that speech. I used to know it in the 8th grade, but I don't anymore. My name is Anna Grace Marker. I am a senior here at Kentucky Wesleyan College, and this is Austin Trammell, my fiance, also a senior here, and we're just here to share a little bit about what God has done in our lives individually, leading us to Wesleyan, and also what He has done in us since we've been here and since we've started dating and gotten engaged and all of those things. So to give you a little bit of a background about me, I am from Parkersburg, West Virginia. I was born and raised in a Christian home. My dad was in ministry, full-time, part-time, on the worship team, doing all sorts of things all throughout my life. And so I think I'm constantly claiming that I was kind of in the fishbowl growing up. I wasn't quite a pastor's kid, but everyone had their eye on me. And I don't say that like regretfully. I'm very grateful for those people because those were the people who just nurtured me and loved me and really helped me to become who I was. So I found Christ at a really young age at a children's revival. I can remember one of my friends looked at me and they were doing like an altar call, and I honestly wasn't really paying much attention, and she looked at me and said, "I think we should go pray." And I said, "Oh, okay," because I was a good friend and I wanted to go and to be with her, and it wasn't until I got down there that I really realized what was happening. And while I don't think I fully understood exactly what salvation would look like, I am immeasurably grateful to that friend of mine because it was on that day that I made that commitment, and I believe that has been very real for me. And so I was saved, and I was baptized several years later in that decision that I made. And so I had really great parents who just supported me and loved me. And really, I don't think I thought much about my relationship with Christ until I was in middle school, high school, in that sort of youth ministry setting. I had tried to follow the rules and wanted to be a good kid, but I was a people pleaser anyways, and so I never really wanted to do anything to upset my parents or anyone else for that matter. So when I started to get into high school, middle school and high school, started to have some really great people in my life who were teaching me to pursue Christ and teaching me that it was more than what I thought it was. And so really, I think towards the start of my junior year of high school is when I kind of said to myself, hey, this is it. I want to be sold out to Christ. I want to be living for Him. And so that's kind of where that began for me. And so if we transition into my senior year towards the decision of deciding where to go to college, I guess it was more towards the end of my junior year, I started looking at places and just kind of seeing what was out there. And I sort of joke, it's actually pretty serious, that the reason I ended up here is because I'm terrible at geography. So my apologies to all of my geography teachers growing up, but it just never really stuck. So I knew that I wanted a smaller school. I knew that I wanted a Christian-based foundation. in the college that I was choosing, and so I got on the internet and I started searching places, and I found in bordering states to West Virginia. I wanted to be far enough away from home, but not too far. So I found Kentucky Wesleyan College, and I was like, this is great. It's in Kentucky. That's not too far. I've been there. And then I realized that Owensboro is in western Kentucky, which is about 400 miles from home, or roughly 7 hours to travel. And I went, nope. And for months just came up with any reason as to why I was not going to tour. And then finally, I think I kind of felt God tugging on my heart to go and to tour, and it was time to start those things. And so I came and I toured, and I fell in love. And I can actually remember my parents came with me, of course, and we were driving down Frederica Street right after my tour ended, and I think we were stopped at a red light, and my dad turned around and looked at me in the back seat and said, "Do we need to tour anywhere else?" And I said, "Nope," and that was that, and here I am. And so I didn't really have a lot of stress about choosing a college like a lot of people do, and I'm grateful for that, but I knew that this is exactly where I was supposed to be.
I guess it's my turn. So yeah, as she has said, my name is Austin. We are engaged. You're probably going to hear a little bit more about that as we go through. But kind of my background leading up to this point in our lives, it's kind of crazy to stop about and think like we're seniors at this point. But I also come from a church background, born and raised in a home that loved Jesus a lot. And so we would go to church every Sunday. Never called a pastor's kid, never looked at it like a pastor's kid, but always involved in events from the church. My mom would do certain youth group things. My dad has always been on our council, so again, always involved in church growing up. But I say that I come from a broken church home. Not broken as in hated one another or just lived in complete sin, but we all are sinners, and some of those things are greater than others. And so my home life has never really been one that I enjoyed, other than the relationships that I developed with my family. And so for me, right, I'd kind of always looked at like competing academically and in sports to come for college. Played baseball all the way through high school, and so for me, I wanted to continue that and looked at a couple places. Wasn't really sure of what to do athletic wise, and so I figured, well, I want to teach, and so I'm going to go somewhere where they have a good education program. Made it through high school, and ultimately I found Kentucky Wesleyan just for that, for something similar to what Annie Grace had said, that it was relatively close for home for me, however far enough that I could get away. Both my dad and my sister went to Bellarmine University in Louisville, where I'm from, and so for me, I knew that I wanted something small, something where I would be more than a number in the classroom. And so that's the reason that ultimately that I came and toured Kentucky Wesleyan College. And upon being here, I mean, it didn't take, but that's kind of like you were saying, one visit to be on campus to realize that this was the place that God had in store for me. And so I had opted to move to Owensboro to live here on campus to be a Panther. And so ultimately I was going to make that adjustment as from living at home to living in the dorms or in the residence halls here on campus. But ultimately for me, grown up in a Christian home, but most of the things that I would say that I've experienced God have come in my time here at Wesleyan. And I think that we're going to talk about most of those, I'd say, here together. So.
Yeah, so my freshman year, our freshman year, we moved on campus in August, and it was kind of a reality check for me that this was real and it was happening, and I didn't necessarily know how to handle that once I got here. I am very much an introvert. And so my roommate from my freshman year, Brittany, and I constantly joke, and mostly it's a joke, but also partly serious, that I literally would still be holed up in my room in Kindle if she hadn't dragged me out to things. But she did, and she forced me to make friends, and I did that. And eventually I got hooked up in campus ministries through a mutual friend of ours, and I met Sean, and I had known that I wanted to be involved in campus ministries, but it always takes that invite. And so legitimately, when I got here, my plan was, I'm going to be involved, but I'm going to slip under the radar. It's going to be no big deal. I did a lot of sort of leadership things in high school, and so I really thought that I was kind of over that, which is really ironic now. But Sean Toms does not really take that from people, and so I came in and I said, I'm going to just hang low. I'm not really going to do much, but I'm going to hang out here and be with these people. And basically Sean crushed all of those dreams for me and instantly put me in positions of leadership where I was sharing Christ with people and serving people. And I am immeasurably grateful for that. But it didn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. And so my freshman year was great. I had a really great roommate. We didn't have all those roommate issues that everybody had. She's my best friend to this day. And so that was a really great experience where we just got to live and learn and grow together. But towards the end of my freshman year, I started having some stomach issues. We weren't really sure what was going on, and I wasn't about to talk to anybody about it because honestly, I think I was kind of tired of being the sick kid. I'd had some issues in high school, had been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome and just some really bad allergies and those sorts of things. And so I was tired of that, and I decided that that wasn't going to be me anymore. But alas, I was sick. And so when I got home in the summer after that year, I kind of told my mom what's going on, and she said, okay, well, let's make an appointment with the doctor, and just they'll see what's going on, see if there's anything that they can do to help, because you can't be having these issues all the time. And I said, okay. And so I went, and they ran a variety of tests and everything they could test for. Actually, someone who looked at my results later said, had you been out of the country? Did they think you had this tropical parasite? And I was like, I don't know. She just told me she was going to test for everything, and I listened, and so that's what we did. And it ended up just being some food allergy things. And so it really was a pretty simple fix. I had to change my diet. And that's what they really needed me to do. And so I had agreed to do that. And so I came back after that summer, and I had changed the diet, and I was going to be healthy. And that was really great. And I was really excited about that. I was in a really good place with my relationship with Christ. I felt like I was growing, and I was kind of seeing the fruits of everybody who had poured into me over that last year. And so I came back my sophomore year. In the beginning of August, I was starting on campus as my first year as an RA, and I was so excited and just in a really good spot, and was ready to go. And so I moved on campus, and things very quickly started to head a direction that I was not planning on and not thrilled about. And so I had obviously, because of all the stomach issues, had some issues just with my health in general, but very quickly I began to lose a lot of weight that semester. Specifically, I lost probably between 20 and 25 pounds over the course of a few months, and it wasn't intentional. It wasn't anything that I was trying to do, and in fact, with the new diet that I was on, I really should have been gaining weight back where I had lost a little bit before. And so it was really kind of puzzling. And so then, to throw things into the mix, Austin and I started dating, which was great, don't get me wrong. And we were very excited. We had been friends and really had been just friends, and the idea started to come up that we might start a relationship, and we made the decision to do that. And that has been such a blessing, and it was at that time, but more than I ever realized, it was God's timing when that started, because we had been dating for all of 2 weeks. And I went home again to doctor's appointments for them to run some blood work. And honestly, I knew things were bad. My clothes were falling off of me, and I wasn't trying to lose weight, and so there's no way that could possibly be good, but I don't think I really realized the gravity of the situation until I was sitting in my doctor's office, and she was telling us again about all the tests that she was going to run. And she looked at my mom and she said, yeah, so we know we do this and everybody instantly goes to cancer, but don't worry, that it might not be that. And I just went, wait, what? I mean, I knew the test was on there, but I didn't even think it was remotely a possibility. And, you know, I had, you know, CBCs and things run before, and so I didn't think anything of it until she said it. And so this was on fall break, and Austin was actually in Oklahoma visiting some family. We had, again, been dating for all of 2 weeks, and so I go into this doctor's appointment to have this blood drawn. It has to be done with fasting, and I'm someone who's had to have a lot of blood work drawn, so I didn't really think anything of it. And I start to draw bloods, and they get about 2 vials in, and I passed out, which had never happened before. And so they woke me back up, and before she could even get the needle back in my arm to continue drawing blood, I passed out a second time. And I just remember waking up, my mom looking panicked, people standing over me. And I had no idea what this was like because it had never happened before, and I just didn't really know how to deal with it, and they still had to draw all this blood, and that was kind of a terrifying experience. And so I remember we finally got done. Mom took me to the parking lot. I was finally able to eat because all that blood work had to be done with fasting. And I got in the car and I sent Austin a text that said, hey, I don't want to freak you out. I know you're trying to spend time with your family, but I just need you to know that I just passed out twice while getting blood drawn. They don't really know what this means. I think it's because of all this weight I had lost that my body just didn't have the energy to sustain the blood volume. While my mom called my dad to tell him what was happening. So, we left, and yeah, it was scary, and I didn't like it, but I was trusting God, and I knew that everything was going to be fine, and I knew that I was fine, that it was just some little fix, one more annoying health problem for me to list and laugh about later. And I came back to school. And when I came back to school, test results started to flood in over the next week or two. And it became very apparent that it was not just going to be some quick fix and that it was something serious. When essentially what happened is they got my blood results back and my white blood cell count was dangerously low to the point where we were just a couple digits off from me being considered immunocompromised. And so my doctor said, I'm going to refer you to a hemato-oncologist. And I said, I'm sorry, what? They deal with cancer. And, you know, I was still getting mixed, could be some sort of blood disorder, could be cancer, could be something else. And I said, okay. And then we started to get some other results, one of which said that my red blood cells were changing shape. And I remember reading that and just taking it to one of my professors and being like, does this really say what I think it says? And he said, yeah, it does. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what it means, but that's what it says. And so I got referred to a hemato-oncologist in Cincinnati, and my parents were going to meet me at this appointment, and Austin went with me, and my friend Brittany, who was my freshman roommate, went with me, and trying to keep the spirits up, and we go into this appointment, and honestly, I was just expecting to be hospitalized right there. I didn't have any other idea of what was going to happen. And so we go in and they ask us all these questions about family history and things that have happened, and look at all my test results, and they do another blood draw, which I was really thrilled about at that time. And they tested and they came back, and the oncologist comes back into the room and he says, okay, well, I see that this is bad. I do. I see that this is serious. I see why you're here. But this test result says your white cell count is resumed to normal. So I'm going to send you home. If you need anything, let me know. If anything changes, let me know. We want to make sure this isn't a pattern, but at this point I have no reason for you to be here. And I didn't understand what a miracle it was at that point. We got back out into the parking lot, and I think I still had this confused look on my face. And my mom was literally jumping up and down and dancing in the parking garage, and I was just standing there. And she said, well, why aren't you more excited about this? And I didn't have an answer for her. I would love to sit here and tell you that I held it together so well during that time, and I was a rock and the epitome of strength, because that's what I like to pride myself in, but that's just not the truth. I was broken beyond all belief. and I didn't understand why it was happening to me, and I was angry and I was upset, and I, in my head, knew that God was with me and that he was going to take care of it and that I had nothing to worry about. But in execution, that's a lot harder. And I can honestly remember sobbing more so than I am right now every day, just trying to figure out what it meant and what it looked like. But God, honestly, he grew me and he strengthened me and he strengthened us. I tell people all the time that Austin literally should have just packed up and left when I sent him that first text while he was in Oklahoma and said, yeah, I don't have to do this. I can just be her friend. We don't have been dating for 2 weeks. Like, we could have gone back to being friends. It would have been no big deal. But he didn't, and for that I'm grateful, because he showed me Jesus in that time unlike anything I had ever experienced, because I needed someone to be there to strengthen me and to uphold me, because I just didn't have it in me to give. You know, when you're sleeping 12 hours, 15 hours a day, there's not time for much else except going to class, and so I was doing that and I was just drained. And I can tell him a little bit about kind of what was happening with him during that year or so, but God is faithful. And if that is not a testament to our relationship and my story and his story separately, but also together, then I really don't know what is.
Yeah. I get chills every time I think about it. So my freshman year, I kind of had plans similar to what Annie Grace's were, to just stay in your room or my room as much as possible. Which, if you know me right now, is kind of funny because I'm a natural born extrovert. And so for me to want to coop up was not really going to be the way that God had that in store for me. My intentions were to FaceTime my then girlfriend from high school all day, every day. Like, when I wasn't in class, that's all I was going to do. So I wasn't planning on making too many friends outside of my residential hall. And so for God to reveal that was a change of pace and that wasn't what we need to be doing, he opened doors through Sean and through Campus Ministries. For me, again, a mutual friend brought me in here as well to get plugged in. Sean very quickly saw that I needed to be doing more than just staying in my room. And so when that relationship ended up going south, Sean had reached out to me, and he knew that I needed to be plugged in and through Campus Ministries. And so since, I guess, the start of sophomore year, does that sound about right? I've been scheduling people for stories, actually, and so it's different to be on this side of the camera or the event actually speaking, but we've scheduled so many people and heard so many testimonies, and all that's been a testament to God, where I thought, coming from a Christian home, that all of our stories were going to be the same and they were all going to be very similar. And through Sean and through stories, God quickly revealed to me that no, everybody's got a story. Everybody's story is a little bit different. And somebody out there who needs to hear it is going to hear it, whether or not you think that they should be the ones who are sharing. And with that, I just mean, like, we've seen so many stories line up on the nights that people have shared, things that I never would have thought possible, let alone me being involved in, very quickly and continuously happened here in Campus Ministries for the chapel and through stories and just so many wonderful things. And so God really used that as a turning point and a transition in my life to say that He cares about everybody, and that everybody has a unique story and a testimony. And thankfully, we kind of have one developing together that we get to talk about. But yeah, through freshman year, as Annie Grace had talked about with her health concerns, we were friends. And then when we started dating, it wasn't long after that. I think she said 2 weeks that when I was in Oklahoma, I got that text, and I never really thought otherwise. Like, I just thought that at first I kind of thought she was kidding, and then after that, no, hey, like, seriously, I quickly realized like it was just something that we were going to do together. I never thought that it was something that she would ever have to handle on her own. And so for us to be able to do the rest of that, to travel to Cincinnati and to prayerfully grow since then, I guess has never been a second thought. Ultimately, we have grown and developed in so many ways since her health scare, I guess, at the beginning of our relationship. And it's just ever growing, and it's kind of like a snowball effect. A little bit of prayer and a little bit of faithfulness at the beginning, with a little bit more over time, it just kind of snowballs into a giant effect where we can't really do anything but say at this point, like, it's no longer us, but a lot of things that have happened in our lives are God ordained, and there's no other way to say that. Yeah, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, our story and our relationship doesn't end there. It's just such a huge part of, and honestly, I feel like a huge testament to who God was for us. We have struggled over these last 2.5 years, individually, together. We just have. We're not perfect human beings. I don't sit up here and try and pretend like I am. I mess up literally every single day. But God has been faithful. And we sit here now, as seniors, engaged. We got engaged in January. And as someone who always wanted to be married but legitimately never thought I would be good enough, that in and of itself was a miracle and was once again a testament to God's faithfulness. And so I just see how he has interwoven everything for us. Our friend groups, we're completely different people. But somehow we picked the same friends, and these are the people who have loved us and have supported us, and who have been there when things really were not that great. And so I just feel so grateful for that. Just to be able to sit here and to talk about how faithful God is. I know that in the midst of a pandemic, it is really easy to hide in fear and let anxiety kind of overwhelm us, but we sit before you just to remind you that God is faithful. He is faithful to his people. One of the verses that I feel like I have really clung to, not even just went through health scare things, but throughout my life, really, since I read it the first time, is Jeremiah 29:12. So Jeremiah 29:11 is really well known and is used a lot in graduations and just different things. But the one that has always struck me is the verse right after it, and it says something once I find it. It says, "Then you will call upon me and go and pray to me, and I will listen to you, and you will seek me and you will find me when you search for me with all your heart. I will be found by you, says the Lord." And while I haven't always been the best about praying through my circumstances, and it's that knowledge that I can cling to God, and if I search for him, I will find him. I can sit here in front of you today and say without a shadow of a doubt that that is the truth. God is faithful. He is faithful to hear us. He is faithful to be found by us. He is the God who sees us. And the other passage that I really just wanted to leave you with is from Romans 12, and it's 9-12, and it says, "Don't just pretend to love others, really love them. Hate what is wrong, hold tightly to what is good. Love each other with genuine affection, and take delight in honoring each other. Never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. Rejoice in our confident hope, be patient in trouble, and keep on praying." This is not a passage that I stand here and say I have perfected this and I do it so well, because that's just not the truth. But it is, every single part of this is something that my brothers and sisters in Christ have done for me. They have loved me well, and they have truly loved me, and they have served me, and so it is something that I am striving to do every day. Is just to be patient in trouble, to rejoice in the hope that we have, and to keep on praying, because we can find God when we pray to him. He is there for us. He's not hiding from us, and so I am just so grateful for that, that he is who he says he is, and he is who he's promised.
Yeah. I'm going to go back just a little bit to something that you said, and then hopefully try to tie it back in. But she had mentioned that that we had sinned together, that we had sinned independently, and so by her saying that we weren't perfect, there were boundaries that we set as soon as we started dating that we inevitably crossed at some point, and it took us sitting down to pray about it and be in the Word to determine how to adjust to those boundaries and how to make sure that we are following God's plan for us. I guess is the best way that I can put it. As a couple, and so ultimately we were able to do that. God has been so good to us over the last year alone. He revealed to Annie Grace that our bouncing back and forth between a couple of churches here in Owensboro was never the way that he intended for us to be in his house. And so we were benefiting from one sermon one Sunday and another sermon at a different church the next Sunday, where both of us called our church homes. But it was never to the extent that he designed for us. So I believe that he revealed to her, and he said, hey, you need to move churches. But no, I felt a very clear conviction at our new church that we've been attending that I needed to be baptized, and so I took it upon myself and went and was baptized, and she was right alongside me. She handed me my towel when I got out, and that was really cool to know that God revealed that to her so quickly, and then moved in that, just confirming that we were in the right spot. Since then, with engagement being on my mind specifically, I have been in constant doubt, I guess, of how we're going to pay for things once we get married. And funny story about her ring that we would love to tell you about sometime. But when we went, inevitably, for me to go pick it up after having it resized here recently, I just spent the entire 45-minute drive from Owensboro to Evansville just praying for financial stability. It was intended to be a brief 5-minute prayer at the beginning, and I was going to turn on my music and jam the rest of the way there. But sometimes God gets a hold of your heart, and so I prayed the whole way there, and most of it revolved around financial stability. Inevitably, when I got there, they were talking to me about a minor hiccup that had happened with the ring, and that it was going to cost me a little bit of money out of pocket, and it just wasn't something that I was prepared for. And even though it was, it would have been less than $50? Yeah, less than $50 to me. Praying for financial stability and not having it at the time, it just feels like $5,000, right, or $500,000, and so I just wasn't ready for that. However, when the lady met with her manager that was there, in an instant answer prayer from God, the lady came back out and said, "Hey, it's actually going to be free of charge," and that for that mistake, and then they actually went on to give us a small discount onto the wedding band that we're really wanting to get. And so it's just been crazy that God revealed that, and I prayed about it, and He answered it so quickly. And with that being something that was on my heart so recently, Annie Grace had a loved one, her sister, who had somebody bless her and her husband when they got married with a check for them, and so her and her husband were able to do that and sought it out in prayer, and actually did the same thing for us and kind of surprised us. I don't think either one of us were expecting that, but it wasn't necessarily through her brother or through her sister and brother-in-law, but it was God ordained, and it was enough to just kind of remind us that He's always with us, and that He's always He's guiding us, and He's hearing our every prayer. And so, long story short, I guess for me over the last 6 months, especially, I would say most of the time that I've been here in college, it's to just have the faith and the courage to step out and be intentional in the ways that you pursue God, because He's definitely doing that to you. He hears every prayer that you have. He cures cancer before it starts, and He's with you along the way. And so to trust Him and to love Him and to let other people see that through you. Just be joyous in all things you do. Always try to expect the best, because you know that He's never going to let you down. It might look a little bit different. I mean, this looks a little bit different. Us sharing, it's kind of weird being up here without anybody in the chairs, but for us to be here and to share is all a testament of what God's done in our lives. We probably don't glorify Him enough for the ways that He's moved in our lives. And so just as much to us as what it is to you, just continue to give thanks for how He's moved in your life, and ultimately what He's going to do. Just stay faithful, because He always is. Any last minute words? No. This is where we wait.